Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com. Look, update 35 dropped and changed a lot since I've done a solo PvE tier list. So it's time to reintroduce and bring this back up. You're going to want to watch this video for someone who's played through veteran solo dungeons as well as all the solo arenas, magic, stamina, all 6 classes. I'm going to run down through all 12 of them and rank them on a tier list so you can make an educated decision going forward on what class to play, why, and what's going to be meta going forward. Do me a big favor before we get started and smash that thumbs up if you enjoy this video and click subscribe if you like future content like this, and I'll keep cranking out these updates on tier lists if you find it useful. Also, timestamps are below in the description for my builds that I also play all of these solo as well if you want to skip ahead to a specific class just to see what I rank it and why. Moving on, let's talk about what has changed so you can understand the context of why I rank these classes the way I do. The first major change that is important to go over is understanding the hybridization of stats. So previously, Elder Scrolls Online used the resource pool that you used to determine the skill's effectiveness. Meaning, if you casted or used a magic ability, the game would only look at your magic stat, your max magic, spell damage, and spell critical. Now the game dynamically looks at what's the highest. So if you're a magic-based user and you use a skill like Razor Caltrops, which costs stamina as an AoE damage ability, it'll still be very effective for you, even though previously in the game it would not. It dynamically scales. What this does is open the door for a lot of mix and match skills and abilities, but really it benefits stamina enormously. You see, stamina builds now gain access to all the juicy magic abilities for healing and damage and can use their off-stat, magic, for hard-hitting dots while saving their main resource pool for spammables and additional hard-hitting dots, along with very, very nice passives in dual-wield and two-handed skill line. So some magic classes benefit, but after playing the various classes non-stop, it's definitely a stamina-dominant meta in the game so far. But does that mean a stamina class will be number one? You gotta watch the rest of the video. Don't skip ahead and watch the ads. Moving along. Next change up that's really impactful is damage over times lasting longer. So these have been reworked, the damage over times. Now we have what's called sticky and non-sticky dots, which is kind of hard to explain and understand without a 30-minute video. The TLDR here is essentially this. One or more of your in-class damage over time will double in duration and double in frequency. Take, for instance, the Dragonite Noxious Breath skill. It's stamina costing, hard-hitting conal, AoE debuff, and lasts around 12 seconds previously with passives included. So originally this would tick every 1 second, but now the skill doubles to 24 seconds and ticks every 2 seconds. What this does is makes the rotation easier, but you're left with a troubled skill in PvE because you become more reliant on your main spamable. So what you're going to start seeing is classes with dominant main spammables or access to weapon skill line main spammables and executes will really shine during this patch. So in-class executes, really dominant main spammables, your class is doing good. Last thing up, disclaimer on who this video is intended for. I'm assuming you're not God's gift to the game, Parse Warrior #1 on the VMA leaderboards. This is not who the video is intended for, so go ahead and leave me a nasty comment and click off the video. So keep in mind that when I ran through the testing on Veteran Dungeon, Solo, and Arena, I use a mix and match basic gear setup for the most part without fancy mythics and trials gear, because I wanted to simulate what the average player watching this trying to make an educated decision on their class choice going forward would be. So don't expect me to copy and paste the VMA all-time leaderboards and say, that's the best class. It ain't happening. And now to reveal the last class on the list, number 12, and something that's taking a dramatic step back in solo PvE content. And I'm afraid to say it, the Magic Dragonite. The Magic Dragonite is the first up on the ranking. I rank it C- tier. The Mag DK is incredibly dominant in PvP, and that's the issue. Some of the changes and reversions the developers continue to make are heavily influenced by PvP. The Combustion passive, for instance, which is your sustain loop, nerfed. Burning Embers, which is kind of like a mini pale order in terms of effectiveness for healing while doing damage, nerfed. And now Molten Whip, our main spammable, costs half magic and half stamina? Huh? If you didn't skip the intro, remember me saying classes with dominant main spammables and executes are doing very, very well? Well, in PvE, the Mag DK has neither. And now that your dots last 24 seconds, you're sitting there spamming your main attack, Molten Whip, which you can't reliably use your off-stat pool like Stamina, and it leaves you with the husk of what the Mag DK was before in solo PvE. Well, the pros of the DK are, it looks cool and dominates in PvP, but this is a solo PvE tier list. It's the typical damage over time class, and the rotation is much easier this patch. But the Stamina Dragonite counterpart performed much better and feels like the class is extremely weak without carry sets like False Gods and Pale Order. Moving along to another magic class, which you're going to see a trend here in these first initial ones, and that's the Magic Necro. The Magic Necro I rank is C tier. The Macro has some cons, but self-healing isn't one of them. The issue with Macro is this: in solo PvE without carry sets, you have weak sustain. And then you run into a problem. Do I use Hungry Scythe main spammable for survivability? If I do, I hit like a noodle, but I survive better. Do I run Elemental Drain or Consuming Trap to help my resource sustain? If I do, I'll hit even more noodly? Is that a word? You start stripping off the hard-hitting damage abilities to feed your sustain and survivability, which takes away the main pros of the Macro: big AoE nukes. Also, the Macro, whether melee or range, has the same issue the Dragonite has: no in-class execute. These issues are solved immediately by switching to a Stamina Hybrid build, and suddenly you feel like a god. Objectively, the best way to play a Necro right now is a Stamina Hybrid. Just watch my last video. And the same can be said for a lot of these early builds, but not all. Throw on Dual Wield, you get better passes damage and an AoE execute, using your Magicka pool for damage over time healing, and it solves the two issues for the class instantly. So unless something changes with the Necro or the weapon skill line, specifically having a not in-class execute, I'm going to leave this Magic Necro on the bench. It doesn't feel very good outside of PvP, and ultimately I can heal and I can do okay, I can resource sustain okay, but all these issues with the class are immediately solved by just going Dual Wield Stamina Hybrid. Moving on. Next up, we have the Magic Warden, which I rank as B-. Basically copy and paste the two previous points about Magic DK and Necro, and you have the Magnet. Lackluster main spammable that doesn't heal you, nor does it do AoE damage. No in-class execute, which is a trend with these three initial classes and builds. The difference in the Warden has awesome self-healing, playing aggressively by casting Animal Companion skills in Green Lotus, which allows you to have a great self-healing while playing offensive. This also frees up your Stain for a little bit more of damage and damage over time effects, and the Magnet is much easier to play now with Deep Fissure lasting 9 seconds in total, plus you have the ability to stack your bar up with damage amps, making your build very simple. Another downside of the Magnet is reliance on pets for optimal damage, which isn't something I care for, but it's okay magic build solo that doesn't need to rely on Pale Order or False Gods to pretty much solo anything in the game. And you guessed the solution! Throw on Dual Wield, spin to win, use a little bit of Stamina, a little bit of Magicka, and nearly all these problems are solved with the Warden. Lord Warden! But enough about Stamina Hybrids being the best ever. Let's move on to the first Stamina class on our tier list, and that's the Stamina Dragonite. Stamina Dragonite comes in at B tier. What the Stamina Dragonite has over the Magic DK is using Dual Wield to get AoE execute Whirling Blades. For when targets reach low HP around 25%, the faster you can get into execute, the easier the game and solo content will be. But the class is still plagued by weak self-healing. My solution: throw on Pale Order Mythic to carry you, or Cinderstorm, the other morph of Eruption. You can also use Burning Embers instead of Venomous Claw, but when you do this, well, you guessed it, your damage drops significantly. Moreover, your sustain comes from using ultimates. Standard of Might remains one of the highest in-game for pure raw damage. You'll see many folks dropping a Standard of Might when they're parsing and go, I want to be a parse warrior when I grow up. Well, until you actually play in content, you drop a banner and the boss moves immediately. Yes, it's one of the hardest hitting abilities in the game, but if you don't know all of the content exactly, and you drop your banner at the wrong time, you lose all of your damage in the main focal point of the build. Because remember, it's not a parse dummy. This class and playstyle is utterly dominant in PvP and is currently my favorite. But with the 24-second long-lasting dots, I'm sitting there using 5, 6, 7 main spammables and falling asleep. Molten Whip, Molten Whip. Back to sleep. Sure, I got choices outside of Molten Whip, which are great. I bet I feel every Stamina class has something more desirable than a Dragonite, and I don't play it outside of group content. Next up, we have the Stamina Warden. I rank it B tier. Lord Warden! The group dominant DPS setup has recently gotten nerfed, so you're probably going to hear a lot of people that say the Stamina Warden sucks. And rightfully so, the group DPS loadout is not as good. But hey, this is a solo tier list video, so what does all that matter? In all seriousness, the solo style of this class is still really good. You have Green Lotus carrying your survivability while you're playing aggressive and offensive, which is fun. Great main spammable choices, whether it's in the class, outside skill, range, or melee with executable options. For the Stam Shine is the ability to use magic seals for healing and damage. This frees up your stamina pool for much easier management of resources, and the Stam 2 falls into the pet dominant class playstyle, using your ultimate pet for optimal damage. It's just a big turnoff having the pet on there. It doesn't feel that impactful, but if you're doing a parse and you look at the actual statistics, sure it will. It'll act as a decoy, it'll hit really hard, but it's nothing like dropping a Dawnbreaker or a Meteor to really ramp up DPS. I don't need a pet to carry me, bro. I think Stam could use some work in the resource sustain department, even with the hybrid magic skills. I feel like it's a little underwhelming overall in comparison to the other classes. Stamina Templar is up next, and I rank it A-. The Templar has seen some big changes, specifically to jabs or biting jabs are main spammable. Now the skill lasts 0.8 seconds instead of 1, making it easier to light attack weave. It still doesn't heal, but overall feels significantly weaker. I still use jabs solo because it's just so simple and easy to weave. And I don't believe for solo anyways it's a terrible option. The upside of the Templar is simplicity. It's very simple to throw a few of Fighter's Guild abilities on your bar to bump up your weapon damage or spell damage, and then throwing on Resolving Vigor and start wailing on bosses without a complex rotation. The Templar can throw on a couple magic abilities like Ritual of Retribution or Blazing Spirit, and hybrid for days with tons of healing and sustain. What holds the class back is this. Biting jabs doesn't hit as hard, so you have to replace kind of what you would normally do with a little bit more hard-hitting dots, making it less simplistic. Nor does your main spammable AoE heal you, like the puncturing sweeps from the Magpar and some other classes I'm going to explain a little bit later. So you have good resource sustain, okay simplicity, okay damage, and it's just a good build that's pretty good for beginners, but I still think there's a lot better options. And moving on to one of them, and that's the Stamina Nightblade, and what I think is one of the best, most unique, and fun playstyles in Elder Scrolls Online. Stamina Nightblade is up next, and I rank A tier. The Stam Blade comes in ahead of the Templar because its pure raw single target damage is just so high. With the proper setup, this thing can burn down solo bosses within seconds, though it can be a bit more complex. It has incredible resource sustain, though not great self-healing that the other classes possess on the list. The major pro or con of the class is this: it's reliant on light attack weaving. Your entire build and passives and everything center on this, rewarding you with resources and damage. So either you're an absolute monster if you're a light attack weaving pro, or it's a bit lackluster if you consistently miss. That's the problem. If you're playing in melee range, it can be difficult to consistently land these light attacks in between every global cooldown to take advantage of everything the Stam Nightblade has to offer. But if you're a sweaty, high action per minute Stamina Nightblade, you're going to absolutely love this class and nuke down everything. Moving on to a class that has better healing, more AoE, and very, very simple, and that's the Stamina Sorcerer. Stamina Sorcerer up next, and I rank A tier as well. The Stam Sorc is A tier currently this patch because it's sheer mobility, speed, and self-healing. The main spammable that was a bit overpowered, Crystal Weapons, was nerfed significantly, moving it down from S tier. The sheer self-healing coming from Critical Surge remains one of the reasons I constantly recommend this class for new players. No, you don't have to get Pale Order Mythic or some cheesy carry set. Slap on Crit Surge, play ultra fast and ultra aggressive. The downside of the class is, well, it's pet reliant, which, again, I'm not a fan of. Throw on 2 pets, double bar them, go AFK, or go for a 10-minute walk with your dogs, only to come back and find the boss dead due to your pets. I'm exaggerating a bit here, or am I? The pets can do a lot of work for you, but they also can die, leaving you incredibly vulnerable until you recast them. Solo Arena specifically, it can be a nightmare to manage these pets dying over and over and over in lava. But Stam Sorc is incredibly mobile with class and outside class executes and great spammable options, and the self-healing remains top tier, making it a great solo class to pick up. Moving on to my beloved main character, which is pretty much nerfed, and that's the Magic Templar, which I still believe is very, very strong. The Magic Templar comes in at A+ tier. My beloved Magpar took a massive nerf to our main spammable puncturing sweeps, which I previously considered, past tense, the best ability in the game. Nerf number 1, puncturing sweeps does 21% less damage and lasts for 0.8 seconds rather than 1. Nerf number 2, sweeps healing was reduced by Wait for it, 33%. Nerf number 3, Purifying Light, reduced in healing by 12%. And Burning Light, which is basically your main bursting tool, now procs with any attack rather than Adric's Spear abilities and reduce the damage by 33%. Update 35 truly stripped down and nerf puncturing sweeps so much that now main spammable like Blazing Spear actually outperforms it pound for pound in terms of damage. And I think this was an oversight by ZeniMax Online Studios, because I'm pretty sure they watched the videos. You know who you are working there. I mean, not to brag or anything, but I did beat VMA and Vatashram Hollows with one button, but you know, humble brag here. Seriously though, Magpar is still good, but it's not top tier. Again, that Blazing Spear is outperforming puncturing sweeps, but obviously it doesn't heal you, so you end up with the main spammable outside of solo content or a parse dummy. It feels odd, clunky, unengaging, and lackluster. So I still stick with sweeps, which is very simple, still heals you, and still does a bit of good damage. The class is ultra simple with good healing. But with the nerf to Oakensoul, sweeps, Purifying Light, Burning Light, the Magpar just doesn't feel as powerful nor as fun if I'm being totally transparent, so I moved it down the tier list. Because let's be real here, I'm Skip Bayless subjective. Consider this still a great option for melee dominant beginners. Moving on to the last stamina class on the list, and what I think is going to replace the Godplar is the God Crow or Stamina Necro hybrid. Stamina Necro is up next, and I rank it S- tier. The Stam Crow feels like a gassed up Magpar now with Ruinous Scythe main spammable. It hits hard, sets off balance, procs status effects, and heals you like an absolute jackhammer. This is how I was able to solo City of Ash 2 without any mythics or trials gear, just a basic loadout because the class healing and damage is so strong. Another upside the class is hard-hitting magic abilities, specifically damage over time, would solve the earlier problem of the class's resource sustain issues. The downside is it can be kind of complex and clunky until you get the hang of the Blast Bones, essentially casting it after every 2 or 3 skills. In my opinion, it's worth the time investment of learning this because the sheer raw damage can be astonishing, though complex. And another benefit of this class and playstyle is the freedom with multiple main spambles, weapon choices, skill choices, you name it. You can really customize this build to the individual player. You need more resources? Swap in Mortal Coil. Need more mitigation? Swap in Spirit Mender. Need another damage over time ability? Swap in Skeletal Archer. Completely fine-tune your exact build the way you need it. Huge AoE nukes and passable skills, and it's a total blast and objectively very powerful. But there are 2 classes that I think are more powerful, and actually they're magic, not stamina hybrid. And we're moving on to the Magic Nightblade. Magic Nightblade is up next, and I rank it S tier. Let's start by saying what the Magic Nightblade can do well, and that's pretty much everything. You can do mind-numbingly single target damage, AoE damage with Sap Essence and Swallow Souls, healing you while you're doing damage, which the Stamina Nightblade does not have. You also have range, and a range and class execute 28 meters, keeping you at a safe distance, and it's a huge advantage for most players. You have great resource sustain with skills like Elemental Drain and Siphoning Spell, combining damage, healing, and sustain. And you have the most ultimate generation possible with Soul Harvest Ultimate, giving you back ultimates upon kills when you slot it on your front bar. You can stack this further with Fighter's Guild, Banish the Wicked, and get even more ultimate back, allowing you to roll ultimates back to back. Also, the Mag Nightblade got a buff to Concealed Weapon, which is a melee in-class spamble. You can simply leave this on your bar and run Twisting Path on your back bar to take advantage of the 10% damage buff, and you have an ultra-powerful range class that isn't dependent on stamina skills or hybrid build. The downside of the class is kind of similar to what the Stamina Nightblade has, and you're very reliant on light attack weaving and being very focused on doing that. And I find Swallow Soul is a bit hard to light attack weave just with the animation. I don't know what it is. And it's just not as simple as our #1 spot, but it has great self-healing, tons of ultimate generation, and I'd recommend leveling up a Magic Nightblade if it's for you, because you don't have to rely on pets. And you guessed it, begrudgingly #1, I gotta go with the Magic Sorc. Right now, I think it's the best solo class in the Elder Scrolls Online. And here we have it, Magic Sorc is up next, and I rank it S+ tier. The Mag Sorc is everything the Stam Sorc is, with a bit better survivability and single target damage. Mind-numbing self-heal while playing offensive with Critical Surge. Incredibly simplistic with 2-pet loadout or a no-pet loadout, which you can basically load a bunch of abilities on your bar to crank up your max magic and spell damage passively. Easy resource sustain using stamina-based skills like Razor Caltrops for AoE Major Breach, freeing up your magic pool. And in-class ultimates that absolutely carry your damage and sustain, making it very effective at early base game and not requiring Psijic Order or Mage's Guild or anything else, which is very painful to level up on multiple characters. And the base game gear sets are incredibly powerful, so you're not again forced into only using mythics and fancy trials gear if you're a solo player. And it's range heavy single target, when that's perfect for solo arenas or overland content where your main objective is to nuke down one boss single target heavy. The major downside I see with the sorcerer is being pigeonholed into a playstyle that, well, is pet specific, because the math and the effectiveness of the pet loadout is so strong overall. I still prefer the non-pet Sorc loadout and more damage over time abilities rather than pets to crank up the action per minute, but objectively it's not the optimal method. Until jabs or sweeps is reverted or changed, or there's another stamina hybrid class that gets a buff and resource sustain and simplicity, I still think Magic Sorc is the best one right now. Whether you're a beginner, intermediate, and advanced, this class is absolutely dominant solo. Simplistic, self-healing, good AoE, single target, and it's just fun to play with that range is a huge advantage. Well, gang, that's the video. Thanks for making it all the way to the end if you did. If you haven't got a chance to hit that thumbs up, please do. Also subscribe. And if you're looking for a template or a build to start with, check the link in the description below, as I should have my builds laid out and updated all for update 35 if you need a place to start on a solo build. Until next time, thanks for watching.